Harley every weeknight to discuss the latest in news and entertainment.
Right here on WOCA, The Source.
Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA.
Ocala.
5 minutes after 10 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in this Tuesday morning. All right, I have to tell you something that's going to reveal that I'm old. All right, and I hate revealing that I'm old. I always like to everybody who doesn't know me to think that I'm young, but it's impossible with what I have to say right now. Because when I was young, I used to watch Abbott and Costello.
Yeah.
Right away, you know I'm old. All right, and every once in a while they would have this place they went to, and they had to have this password to get through, Open Sesame or something of that nature, right? And you think, gosh, that's so stupid. There's no place where a door just opens up by itself just because you say the password.
Yeah.
Well, think about today's world, right?
Uh-huh.
Passwords are everywhere, and I haven't been to a place yet where you have to say a password to open up a door, but I bet they're out there. Mm-hmm. I bet you there's some kind of a lock somewhere. I mean, with today's technology, we use passwords for everything.
Oh, sure.
In fact, so many passwords that I lose track of mine, right?
I know. We can't ever have the same one.
So passwords were once upon a time like a thing of fables and fairy tales, and now it's a real part of life. Well, what about potions? What about like love potions and things like that? I remember as a kid. Now, don't tell anybody who respects me, but I remember as a kid, I was with my friend Robert. And we saw this ad in the back of this magazine that you could get girls to like you if you bought this stuff called Spanish Fly. Uh-huh. That's what we thought it meant, girls to like you. We didn't know it had something to do with sex. We didn't even know what sex was. But anyway, we ordered it, and it was like $1 or $2, and they never sent it. We were so, oh man, they ripped us off. Whoever put that ad in that magazine.
Probably in the back of a comic.
We have such this might be my most favorite book in a long time. It's called Science of the Magical, From the Holy Grail to Love Potions to Superpowers. Matt Kaplan is the author of this book. I love the picture of him in the book. I mean, he really looks like an explorer with the Indiana Jones kind of a hat. Mm-hmm. He's on the phone. Wait to hear about this book. Good morning, Matt. I'm looking forward to having this chat.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. Where are you? Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from California. I've just finished touring across the U.S., and Los Angeles was the last stop. So I'm just here for a few more days before flying to Harvard on Friday. I'm speaking at Harvard University on Saturday, and then off back to Europe. So it's been a hell of a journey. Funny that you should mention love potions. That was a kick to write.
Oh, really? So
yeah.
Is there a recipe for a love potion in your book? Because I got to find what page it is.
Well, it depends upon what kind of recipe are you looking for? I mean, you've got this. Okay, so some of this stuff that our ancestors got up to was, quite frankly, crazy. They're like, if a woman wanted a man to fall in love with her, some of the old stories say that what you need to do is paint yourself naked with honey, and then roll around in oats.
That's enough for me.
Yeah, I know. And then scrape the oats off, and then bake them. Scrape the oats off, knead them between your legs, and then bake it, and then feed it to the man who you want to have fall in love with you.
Just stay naked the whole time. I think that'll be it. That's enough to do.
Yeah, but this is for when he comes home from work, or is at a party or something, and you eat it first, and it's got your scent on there. That's a good thing.
And while you look at it and think, what the heck were they thinking? There's some kind of perverse logic here, because people understood, to at least a very basic level, that human scent was important for attraction, and that this was all involved. And they went a lot further than that. That you've got Siberian ginseng, which is an aphrodisiac, which was used in ancient elixirs, and you've got this stuff from the guts of sperm whales that folks collected, called Ambra gracia. And it, too, also is an aphrodisiac. So we know our ancestors were messing with this stuff.
How did they figure that one out? The gut of a whale.
If you've got 15,000 years of wanting people to fall in love with you, and you keep tinkering with different things, you're eventually going to fall upon something that works.
You're a good-looking guy. I don't think you need anything like that. I mean, look at you. I mean, you're all over the country. Come on, you're an author. You've got it. That's the aphrodisiac, right? I wrote a book. Oh, come over here, honey.
Well, my current wife found me and decided that I was worth sticking around with before I published anything. So that was awfully nice of her. And yeah, anyway, but what's really scary, you're talking about how passwords are now the real deal.
Yeah.
How it is part of life. And the scary thing with love potions is they are now very much the real deal. If you really wanted to, and totally unethical and illegal, you could take a mix of estrogens and androgens and use dopamine and norepinephrine drugs and then, mess with serotonin levels. And there are drugs that do all of this and then, shoot some oxytocin, and you would make them smile more, feel friendlier.
Hold on,
you.
I have to make an announcement. Bill Cosby, you have to turn off your radio right now. You're not supposed to listen. You can't be listening to this. All right, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's right. I mean, you could take the mix of drugs, and you could, if you put two people together, increase the chances of there being a one-night stand. But then you look at the issues of free will and personal preference, and you might get them to sleep together, but then the next morning, if they're not a good mix, you're going to wake up and go, oh my God, what did I do? So you have to ask yourself, what is love? And, exactly what are you looking for? And I suspect the definition varies.
All right, so let's talk about some of the other. The first question I have is this: some of the old fables that we have that have been handed down, they refer to different potions that do different things. Is that completely made up, or do you suspect that maybe there was more to it than simple fiction?
Oh no, absolutely. There are definite realities to the potions that were created in the past. So, I mean, you go and take a look at stuff that's in Shakespeare, for example. And Shakespeare is talking about, I'm trying to remember the play off the top of my head. It's one of the pieces where the intention is to make somebody appear dead to an evil queen, such that it's Cymbeline.
Okay.
The intention is to make someone look dead, such that the evil queen will think, aha, my rival has been murdered, and then move on and no longer worry. And they use chemical compounds and mix them into a potion such that they will appear dead. You also see this in Romeo and Juliet.
Right.
Juliet drinks this alchemist potion that makes her look dead when in fact she's not. And after several interviews with folks at the Royal Botanical Gardens in Kew, which is in the UK, I said, hey, folks, how possible is it with the stuff that we've got in the UK? Because obviously Shakespeare was in England.
Right.
And they just were able to rattle off, oh, God, yeah, British folk medicine. There's henbane, there's woody nightshade, there's lesser periwinkle. And sure, a lot of this stuff will kill you in high concentrations, but if you know what you're doing, you can create a potion that will really make you look dead or asleep, when in fact you're still going to come back out of it.
But you're still groggy when you wake up, right?
I think it's going to feel like you got kicked in the head a couple of times. But, the reality is that those fictions come from our ancestors exploring the natural world in some very cool ways. And they weren't just making it up. They knew about it, and they mixed it into their stories. But
the problem I have with all of this is that you can get it for the moment, but it won't guarantee a lasting, genuine relationship.
Well, with love potions,
you're back to love. Yeah, we were back there.
Yeah. Hey, look, there is no question at all. And I interviewed a bunch of psychologists and biochemists about this stuff because, I'm a science journalist. My role is to pull the material together and ask the questions. And I remember one of the psychologists who I spoke to, I think her name was Dr. Fisher, and she was saying to me, look, if you drugged me up and then stuck me with George W. Bush, I'd be sitting there, and maybe I'd have a moment with him during the night, but then I'd wake up in the morning and go, oh my God, what have you done, and run as far away as I possibly could.
What would he say?
Sorry?
I wonder what he would say.
Yeah, I know. I then said, well, but what if you folks were friends before you were to, go through this drug-induced haze? And she said, it's first of all unethical to test this stuff, and second, we just don't know. But it's possible that you could use love potions to close the gap. But that's not where the really cool science comes in, actually. The really cool science is using this stuff to break enchantment. Because think about how many people's lives are destroyed by love. You've got a CEO with 5 kids and a wife of 20 years who meets somebody who he falls madly in love with. Total infatuation. His life is going to be destroyed if he has the affair.
Right.
And he's completely Twitter-pated. Is that a word in America?
I know what it means. I don't know, but I know it. I know right away what it means.
Exactly.
Completely Twitter-pated. And Dr. Fisher was telling me, look, we have the potential now to biochemically meddle in this and end that infatuation. Think about how useful that would be if you had someone wise enough to go, okay, if I follow through with this, my life's destroyed. What could I do to help myself? And we're moving in very much the direction of having drugs on the market that could help you cope with that and end it before it really causes a problem.
That is an interesting thought. Do you know, I was watching this thing on YouTube about people who are not heterosexual and they're not homosexual, they're unsexual, whatever, asexual, whatever.
Asexual.
They have no interest in sex at all, but they have an interest in love. So it was an interesting thing, and this is for real. So these people, for example, this one girl I was watching, she really, really loved this guy, but she was afraid to tell him, look, I have no interest in sex at all, but I love you. I'm thinking, gosh, when she tells him that, I don't know which potion you would want. You would want one for him to be unsexual or one for her that would change that. I don't know.
It's really interesting you should say that, because one of the things that a lot of people assume is that love is love. But actually, love comes in multiple parts, and it doesn't even come in stages. You have certainly this Twitter-pated phase, but you also have the bonding phase. You have all of these different stages, and they don't happen in any set order. And so when someone says that they can't fall in love, that doesn't mean they can't fall in love. There are actually many different aspects to this, and it's way more complicated than many folks assume.
You're a philosopher as well as a scientist. We need to take a break. I think you knew that was coming. Matt Kaplan is our guest. He is a science correspondent. I didn't even give you his credentials. I was so wrapped up in what the book is about. The book is called Science of the Magical. Matt has written for The Economist, The National Geographic, New Scientist, Nature, The New York Times, and he's a recipient of the Knight Journalism Fellowship. I'm going to ask him what that is when we come back. Science of the Magical is the title of the book. We'll be right back after the weather and a couple of commercials. We'll be right back.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Safe boating is no accident. For this Tuesday, intervals of clouds and sunshine with a passing shower, the high 81 to 85. Partly to mostly cloudy Tuesday night, low 66 to 70. For Wednesday, mostly cloudy with a passing shower, especially in the afternoon, the high 81 to 85. And Thursday, mostly cloudy and cooler with a couple of showers, the high 71 to 75. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Joe Lundberg.
If you're anything like I was, the thought of getting older was the last thing on your mind. But here we are. For me, it started slowly. The lack of energy, never being in the mood. And when I was, I could never perform at my best. I tried the pills and other treatments with minimal results, and all but given up on my sex life. Then I found the doctors at New Male Medical Center. Wow, they made a new male out of me. Feel like I'm 25 again. I have renewed vigor, so much more energy, and no longer worry about my performance. New Male treated me like my situation was one of a kind, with a custom treatment plan that really works. I feel great. They can create one for you too. It does not matter if you suffer from low testosterone, erectile dysfunction, or just want to last longer. New Male will help you.
Call New Male Medical Center today at 352-404-4779. 352-404-4779. That's 352-404-4779. It will change your life. 352-404-4779.
Looking to put your money to work? Florida Credit Union has 3 CD specials: 12 months for 1.05% APY, 24 months for 1.50% APY, 36 months for 1.75% APY, each with a $10,000 minimum. Federally insured by the NCUA. APY equals annual percentage yield. These rates effective through December 31st, subject to change at any time. Visit one of Florida Credit Union's convenient locations today or visit their website at flcu.org.
The very best in quality is Captain T's upholstery.
Is that couch cushion sinking lower every time you sit in it? Does your boat look better with the cover on? Has your car's interior seen its better days? Stop using a towel to cover up those rips in the golf cart. Isn't it about time you had it restored to better than new with a custom upholstery from Captain T? Captain T's upholstery has been right here in Ocala for nearly 20 years. so they know how to make your ride one of a kind. Whether you want to take that classic ride back to a factory look or put your favorite sports team front and center, Captain T's Upholstery is who to call. 352-369-1810. That's 352-369-1810. Or stop by their location, 5030 South Pine Avenue in Ocala, just past the drive-in. And of course, don't forget to visit them on the web, CaptainTUpholstery.com.
The very best in quality is Captain T's Upholstery.
20 minutes after 10 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. Matt Kaplan is on the phone out in California somewhere, so he must have got up early to be with us. 10:90, so it must be 7:20 out there, right?
Yeah.
Matt, you still with us, I hope, right?
I'm here.
The book is called Science of the Magical. The subtitle is From the Holy Grail to Love Potions to Superpowers. Let me ask you this. Are scientists today accidentally discovering things and then saying, oh my goodness, this is similar to what Shakespeare wrote about, or this is similar to something that I heard in a fable one time? Is that happening?
Yeah, all the time. Well, I say all the time. It happens, and you can see where it's happening. Are you familiar with the Odyssey?
Oh, Homer's Iliad.
Yeah,
and
but
Odyssey,
it was a while ago. I think I fell asleep.
Okay, so the short version is Homer tells us this tale of Odysseus as he's sailing home, and he ends up on this island called Aeaea, and he and his men are starving and exhausted, and they come onto the land and they decide to split up, because that's always a good idea, right?
Yeah.
And the men one group of men wander off, and they find this palatial home. And in the midst of the palatial home, they find a woman who is scantily clad. She welcomes them in and says, hey, please eat, drink, be merry. All but one of the men go in. That other man thinks, oh, this doesn't look like a good idea. I'm not going in there. And she then takes out her wand after they've eaten their fill, points it at them, and turns them all into animals. The one remaining man runs back to Odysseus and says, oh my God, this woman's turned all of our men into beasts, you got to do something. And Odysseus comes running to their aid. And as he's running to their aid, the god Hermes, who's a messenger god but also associated with medicine, says, whoa, slow down there, Odysseus. You can't face Circe alone. Take this. And he plucks a plant out of the ground. It's got a milk-white flower and a black root. It's remarkably well described in the Odyssey, which is unusual. And he says, consume this, and Circe will have no power over you. So you then look at the literature itself, and you realize when you look at the actual writing of the Odyssey, it says that Circe didn't just use her wand, she mixed baneful drugs into the food that she fed the men. And then, when Odysseus goes and faces her, she points her wand at him, too, after he's eaten her food, and her wand has no effect. For years, people have said, okay, she was probably drugging them with a plant called Datura stramonium, which is also known as thorn apple. It attacks a neurotransmitter in the brain called acetylcholine. And, people have said, well, that grows on the island, it causes amnesia, it makes it hard to differentiate reality from fantasy, so that must be what's going on. And that was pretty much it. Everyone assumed that the plant given by Hermes was just nothing. How could that be real? But in 1951, a Russian pharmacologist named Mikhail Mashkovsky was traveling in the Ural Mountains, and he discovered that villagers were taking a milk-white flower with a black root and massaging it into the legs of children suffering from polio. And they argued with him and said, this plant will prevent our children from being paralyzed. When he took it back to the lab, he noticed that the plant protected the neurotransmitter acetylcholine. That drug that he created from the plant eventually ended up in Bulgaria in the 1970s, where it was registered as Novalin. Today, if you know anyone suffering from Alzheimer's, they're taking a drug called galantamine. Galantamine comes from a flower that is milk white with a black root. And so in 1983, a couple of neurologists actually tested this flower on rats that were being poisoned with Datura stramonium, curious if the flower might be Homer's Molly. Might this have been the plant that Hermes gave to Odysseus? And they found that if you consume this white flower before being poisoned with Datura stramonium, it prevents you from suffering the hallucinogenic effects that would make you believe you'd been turned into an animal. So they made this huge splash back in 1983, and I think that there really is something to it. We assume that the Odyssey is just fiction, and most of it is. I'm not saying Circe and Odysseus were real, but I suspect that our ancestors did know about the plants that could have these effects, were playing with them, and that information leaked into the literature and got preserved.
That is a fascinating story. Wow, that is amazing.
You have something in here about a jar of makeup that scientists found evidence of lead and a 240% increase in nitrous oxide production. But isn't lead deadly? Because I know people that lived up north that had lead in their paint and on their floors, they actually got cancer from that and they died.
Yeah. So in 1902, Georges Benedict went out to the Saqqara pyramids from the Louvre Museum in Paris, and they found all this makeup in the tombs there. And they saw in the hieroglyphics that the people at the time believed that if they painted their face with this makeup in the same way as the god Horus. Now, Horus is the god with the falcon head, and falcons have these big black stripes over their eyes. So people were painting their faces in the manner of Horus, and the hieroglyphics said that if you paint your face in the manner of Horus, you will protect your eyes as Horus's eye was always protected. Because there's all these tales of Horus having his eye gouged out by the evil god Set, who is the god of storms and war. And they thought, oh, wow, that's kind of interesting. Maybe there's a medicinal benefit to these face paints. But they found high concentrations of lead ions in the face paints. So for nearly 100 years, in fact, more than 100 years, folks at the Louvre were saying the Egyptians were crazy, they were stupid, they were painting their faces with poison. But then in 2010, a paper was published by Christian Amator at the National Center for Scientific Research and Philippe Walter, also at the Louvre, in the journal Analytical Chemistry. And they said, the ions in this lead are Pb2+. This is a little bit of chemistry, so we'll try to go light on it. And the ions in your immune system that trigger an immune response are calcium 2+. These two ions, lead and calcium 2+, have identical charges, identical coordination with water molecules, and are nearly identical in their atomic radii. And so they speculated that if you put Pb2+ ions onto the thin skin around your eye, that it might summon immune cells to the area in the same way that calcium does. They tested it out, and they found that, first of all, when you use the makeup in the manner that the Egyptians mixed it, it doesn't have any toxic effects. Second, they noticed that it created a 240% increase in levels of nitric oxide in the surrounding tissues, which creates a standing army of cells that are there ready to attack anything that enters the eye. And you think, well, why did the Egyptians care about protecting their eyes so much? Well, think about it. They only had the Nile, and the Nile was absolutely loaded with bacteria. To this day, if you don't get medical attention and you go and rinse your face in the Nile, you're going to get conjunctivitis and a whole bunch of other nasty infections that will not only ruin your vision but potentially kill you.
Oh my God.
So we don't know if the Egyptians, they ascribed all of this stuff up to the protection of the god Horus. Paint your face like Horus, and your eyes will be protected as his were. But did they actually realize there was a medicinal benefit, or did they just put it up to mysticism? You can't know because there's no Egyptians to ask.
Yeah, well, but they would call that magic. I think what we call science, and I think that's the point of the book, isn't it? That what they called magic, we call science.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so I was blown away because I read scientific papers for a living. I read them and I write them up in The Economist. That's my job. And so when you run across papers like that in analytical chemistry, I get really excited, and then I start following up with everybody who I can. And in this case, I was talking to folks at Harvard Medical School to double-check the research, and they said, my God, this would create a response to bacteria that would be resistant, that would not create antibiotic resistance, because you're not creating a poison that kills the bacteria directly. You're summoning a huge army of your own cells, and that would be almost impossible for bacteria to get around.
Wow, and that sounds like you could be onto something that would cure other things as well.
Yeah.
Okay, the book is here. I would love to keep it, but I'm not going to. I'm going to give it away. I'll buy my own copy.
That's wonderful.
Call me if you want the copy that was sent to us by Matt or by Matt's people. I'm not so sure. His people sent it to our people.
Yes.
Call me 622-9622. You can have the one that was sent to me. The rest of us have to buy it. Matt Kaplan is who you would look up, Kaplan. Matt, do you have a website?
Yeah, you can go to a matteroffactinfiction.com. It's a matterofactandfiction.com. We've got videos of trying to create the Holy Grail, videos of us chasing after ravens to follow wolves to our destiny, just exploring myths and science all side by side, and it, of course, links to the books, too, because I wrote a book called Science of Monsters a number of years ago, too,
that is cool.
Which does similar stuff.
Matt, please be careful on your way back to the East Coast, and thank you so much for being on the air with us today. That was fun.
It was my pleasure. You have a good day.
Thank you. We'll be right back.
Fox News Radio, I'm Lillian Wu. The president putting out an optimistic message at the UN Climate Change Conference.
I'm sure there will be moments over the next 2 weeks where progress seems stymied and everyone rushes to write that we are doomed. But I'm convinced that we're going to get big things done here.
Speaking in Paris, where leaders from 150 nations are gathered, President also